I sit here and I anticipate disaster.
Hello, total strangers. Today I'm gonna be doing something hopefully fun. I'm gonna be watching a video on YouTube on how people in Uzbekistan make their famous Samsa. Yes, super crispy. So first thing, I love that little tear-shaped pastry. It's so darn cute. And then I can just imagine like the first bite on that really extra crispy tips. That's gonna be the treat. So it's obviously gonna make a dough first. It's really pretty straightforward. It seems to be just flour, salt, and water. I don't know if that's gonna be bread flour or all-purpose flour. I feel like I want to go with bread flour because usually in these like very hardy climates, their wheat tends to have a little bit more protein in it. In terms of like recipe and techniques, I'm gonna stick to as close to the video as I possibly can and see if it works in the home kitchen. So here I already have flour, salt, in my mixer bowl, and it's a very simple dough. I think it looks like it's just water, salt, and flour. So I'm gonna add 160 grams. Okay, 160 grams of water in here. That's about 55% hydration, which is my estimate. Anything under that, it's gonna be hard to work with. Here I have a mixer. If you don't have a mixer, or you refuse to use a mixer, or your grandma do this by hand, whatever. If you want to knead this for 30 minutes, be my guest, but I'm gonna use a mixer and knead it for about 10 to 15 minutes until it's really elastic and smooth. You really need that elasticity in this kind of a lamination dough so that the dough doesn't break. So here we go. And I'm gonna use like speed 1 to 2 at the most, because it's a very small amount of dough and it's quite dry. If you spin it too fast, the dough is just gonna be pushed around in the bowl instead of being kneaded. And I think meanwhile, we don't have anything to do, so cut. It only took about 10 minutes and the dough is very smooth and elastic, very soft. So right now, this needs to absolutely rest for at least 1 hour, okay? If your kitchen is super hot like mine, you can do this in the fridge, but normally room temperature will be fine, but at least 1 hour it needs to rest, okay? Okay, that's beef. Okay, that's really interesting. Look how huge of a chunk of a cut those are. Like, that's like practically bite-sized cuts. Like, that's not ground meat. I think that's what differentiates Samsa from like a typical meat bun, that, you know, they're not using ground meat. They're actually using huge cubes of beef. Okay, that's a huge chunk of lamb fat. That's gonna be difficult. Like, I don't know anywhere here I can actually get that huge piece of lamb fat. I mean, pork fat, easy, but lamb fat, not really. I'm gonna have to try to find a compromise for that. But obviously, we're not gonna ignore the fat part because that's where the flavor is. So here I have a piece of steak, it's beef, because they were using beef. And then I have pork fat, solid pork fat. There's no way I will be able to find big pieces of like solid lamb fat here in Hong Kong. It's really hard, so I'm gonna use pork fat. I know it's not halal. If you're like obsessed about keeping it halal, you can use lamb fat or beef fat if you can find some, okay? I've tested this recipe a few times. I don't really like the mouthfeel of like a huge chunk of beef. So I'm gonna use a food processor. I'm just gonna cut it into big chunks first. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to do a mixture of ground beef, and there's like small chunks and then big chunks. I like variations, okay? But if you like pure big cubes, you can do that. So I'm gonna pulse. Okay, so you can see there's like little pieces, like, you know, tiny pieces. And then there's also like big pieces, okay? The ratio of like fat and lean meat, you can see from the video, they have like at least a third of it is like fat, okay? You can be the judge of that. If you want it to be a little leaner, you can do that. If you want it to be, you know, as fatty as, okay, you can see I'm not doing this by food processor because it's really hard to cut solid fat in the food processor. It's just gonna melt it. So this one I have to do with hand, not because I like it. And if you freeze the fat, it's gonna be a lot easier to cut. Even like from the video, those fat, you can see that they were like semi-frozen, but it's just a little bit, so I'm gonna power through it. Okay. If I want it to be thinner, there's always that old school way of like hacking it. You just get a cleaver and you just give it a few hacks. There. And I just want to say, like, their fat, those lamb fat is also quite large of a piece, so I'm not going to mince the fat. I'm just going to keep it chunky like this. Like I said, I'm trying to stick as close to the video or how they make it in the video as I can. If you're not, you know, this like amount of fat just like really freaks you out, you can reduce that ratio. Oh my God, look at how much chopping that's going on here. No. Machine. Cut in small pieces first. In there. Again, I'm also going to pulse. I would call it like finely chopped instead of diced. Oh my God, my eyes. I'm crying. This guy is either wearing a goggle or all the nerves in his eyes are dead. Okay, so the main seasoning I see, it's pretty simple, just cumin and coriander and salt. Not really complex masala going on. Whoa. Do you guys know what that is? That's the magic word. Yes, MSG. I am so glad that I'm seeing them just like dousing it with MSG. That's why it's good. Huh. It's not water, it's actually fizzy water. It's actually soda water. Baking soda is a very, very common meat tenderizer in Asia. I don't want to use soda water because why waste that, you know, liquid content when I can use stock and just add baking soda instead? So that's what I'm gonna do. So you're gonna need like about 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm using fish sauce because if you watch any of my videos, I almost never use salt. I always use fish sauce. Again, it's not halal, so if you want to keep this halal, you can do 1.5 teaspoon of salt instead of fish sauce, okay? And then I'm gonna have 2 tablespoons of chicken stock. And usually, typically, I love MSG, and like
they, like in the video, they put like a huge ton of MSG in here, and I was like, yeah, that's my excuse of using MSG. But because I already used the fish sauce, and the fish sauce is basically like a natural MSG, okay? So, but if you want to keep this halal, 1.5 teaspoon of salt, and then you can add 1 teaspoon of MSG in there, okay? And then cumin. I'm not a big fan of biting into a whole seed of cumin, so I'm using these like coarsely ground cumin. You can use whole if you want.
I like whole cumin.
Vetoed. And then allspice. They're using coriander. I don't find a huge amount of flavor in ground coriander, so I like allspice. It's a warm spice. It balances out the sharpness of the cumin. And then 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm seasoning this a lot more aggressively than in the video, okay? Because that's just what I do, so.
Because you're aggressive.
Aggressive, be aggressive. Okay, so now you mix this together. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna use my hand. I want to use my hand because I really want to squeeze those like extra liquid and the stock that I added into the meat. I really want the meat to absorb all that liquid, okay? It's very, very hard to work with the filling that is too liquidy. So you want the meat to almost take on this like sticky texture, kind of like when you like, you know, squeeze it, it has that shape of your fingers instead of just like loose meat laying around.
Wow, look, this ratio is insane. It's almost like 2 parts onion and 1 part beef. You know, if I'm gonna take a swing at this, it's probably because meat is more expensive, so you know they're using more onion than meat. I think I might go with like a 1-to-1 ratio.
And I'm not gonna mix the onion in with the beef right away. I'm just gonna like set it on the side because I don't want the onion to come into contact of the salt, and then it's gonna give out a lot of juices and make my filling really watery and make it hard to work with, okay? So I'm gonna mix it in at the last minute. And in the fridge it goes. I can't see. And that's all you're doing while the dough rests. I'll see you back here.
This video didn't show me the kneading process, but judging from the texture of the dough, it's obviously being, it has been kneaded extensively because it has that gluten formation. It's super smooth, super elastic. So here they've rolled it out into like a super thin sheets. I'm guessing that's where the butter is gonna go on top, and that's how they're gonna create these layers. Okay. Okay, so once the butter is smeared smothered on top of the dough. Once the butter is on top, spread on top of the dough, they're gonna roll it out into like a log. And this dough is very elastic. I can see the way that from, you know, when they're rolling it, stretching it, it has a lot of elasticity to it. I think that right now what they're doing is that they are stretching out the dough even longer to get an even thinner layer.
Okay, so the dough rested for 1 hour. Now we're gonna roll it out. The Uzbekistan Samsa, how they laminate their dough, is the first time that I've done it this way. So lightly flour your countertop and flour your dough. You can add more flour as you go, but you don't want, you know, too much flour on it. You want it to be just enough so that it doesn't stick. Okay? And then I'm going to just press this down first with my hand. I'm trying to get it to a big circle. And then I'm going to roll it out. Actually, to make your life easier and make my life easier, I'm not going to roll it out as thinly as they do in the video, okay? Just because it's very hard. But to get more layers, I will show you a trick that I do later on to get just the same amount of layers as they do. So there. That's about as wide as I can roll it out, okay? And it's thin, but it's not quite as thin as they do it in the video. Here I have 5 tablespoons of melted butter. And then I'm going to, like they do in the video, I'm going to brush this really liberally onto my dough. You want to basically like a very even layer across the board. And you do it all the way to the edges, okay? All the way. So I have like, I don't know, 2 teaspoons of butter left. But I think I have enough butter on the dough, so now we're gonna roll. I'm actually going to do like 1 inch fold, okay, instead of just like rolling it like a cigar, okay? Because this, I just think that this makes it easier, and it makes like the layer more even instead of in a circular shape. Okay. If you want that swirl look on top of your samsa, then yes, roll it into like a cigar type of thing. But I don't want that, so I'm doing this like 1 inch fold, okay? Now I have the whole thing rolled up, right? Now to get more layers, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm imagining this dough to be like, you know, 3 parts, and I'm gonna fold the first third over on itself, and then the other third over on itself. And that's why I don't care if the ends are thinner, okay? And this way, because I'm gonna cut it this way and then roll it out this way, so you're actually getting 3 times the layer. It would be impossible to work this dough right now without chilling it. Like I thought, like I feel like their kitchen, in the video that I was watching, their kitchen must be super cold. But here you need to definitely roll it and then flash freeze, not the refrigerator, but freezer, okay? Flash freeze it for 30 minutes. Not 20 minutes, not 40 minutes, 30 minutes, okay? I don't want this dough to be frozen. I just want it to harden it just to the point that I can, you know, work it. But I don't want it to be frozen. That'll be impossible to work with. Also, don't leave it in the fridge overnight and thinking I'm gonna come back tomorrow and then, you know, do it, because that way it's gonna be too cold, and melted butter behaves differently than solid butter, okay? Because solid butter naturally is kind of a natural emulsified state, right? Because we all know that solid butter has milk solids and liquids in there, and it comes in this like naturally emulsified state. That's why it never gets very hard, even in the fridge. But melted butter is different. It's already broken, okay? So it's gonna get much harder when it's cold, and when you roll it out, it's gonna break into pieces instead of like smoothly laminating those layers, okay? So there, 30 minutes.
Okay, so obviously no one, at least I don't, have a tandoori oven at home, so there's gonna be some improvising, significant improvising.
I'm gonna try something that I've not tried before. I've tested this recipe like 1,000 times, but I've never done this before. And that is, I'm going to mimic the tandoori oven where those samsa is baked vertically. Okay, so here's my oven, right? What I did before, during my testing, I always like bake my samsa laying flat, but like I was saying in the video, like I really love that droopy teardrop shape, and I just couldn't get that shape, you know, if I'm baking my samsa flat, you know, because of gravity and everything. So today I had a crazy idea. So basically I created this thing that catches the liquid, and then if I like stick my samsa on top of this pan, and then I basically position it like that in the oven, maybe it can bake just like a tandoori oven. I've never tried this before, so today I'm gonna do 2 here and then 4 flat and then compare that. It could be spectacular failure. I'm gonna say 80% is gonna be a disaster, but we'll see, okay? So very importantly, you have to preheat your oven with the pan that you're gonna bake those samsas in, okay? It has to be very, very hot. So 210 Celsius, which is, I don't know, 400 something Fahrenheit, okay? So there, it's gonna do its thing. See you later. Okay, so they skipped the part where they cut the dough into individual portions. But I'm guessing, like, you know, that long log, I'm guessing they're just gonna be like chopping it into sections and then roll it out into a circle. It's very typical in Asia where when you see like either dumpling making or like meat buns making, they always roll the dough out much thinner on the sides, leaving the center a little bit thicker, because those sides is where the folds and the seams are going to be gathered around. So that way you don't have like a super much thicker part of the bun than, you know, the other, which is exactly what he's doing here. See how he's like super like spreading out the edges to the point that it's almost like see-through. 30 minutes in the freezer. It should be cold but still pliable, okay? Some flour. Now I'm going to cut it into 6 equal portions. Okay. Now you want to roll these out all at once, okay? Because it's kind of temperature sensitive right now, so you want to actually roll it out when it's still quite cold. So very simple. Flour as you go. And I have a ruler here. I'm gonna roll it out to about 15 centimeters, okay? That's about 6 inches, okay? And remember, I want the edges to be thinner than the center. So I'm going to focus rolling it on the edges here. If you want to do your dough the day before or 2 days before, you can, and this is where you stop, okay? So what I do is, once you roll it out, you can put it on piece of, you know, separate it with a piece of parchment paper, stack them up, and then plastic wrap them, and then leave them in the fridge for a day or 2. So again, I'm gonna focus on the side. Okay. So now I have all my wrappers done.
Okay. So that's how they get that Gendel's hat shape. Oh, that's so cute.
mama. And then I think they basically did this, right? And then this, kind of like wrapping a baby. And then they pull the other dough upward like that. Okay? And then I'm gonna pinch these folds together. I'm gonna do this again later on before these goes in the oven. It's gonna get easier once the dough rests a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna like use my finger to like kind of create that Gandalf's hat shape. And I'm gonna leave it leaning upward like that, just like what they do. And continue with the rest. It's like wrapping a baby. And then pull the excess dough inwards to the top, making sure that all the seam side is on the same side together. So I have shaped all 6 of these Samsa. I want you to go back to, you know, because once the dough rested a little bit, it's going to be much easier to pinch the seams together, okay? Because you may find that it was a little difficult to pinch the seams together. But once they've been sitting here for a couple minutes while you're working on the other ones, it's gonna, the gluten's gonna relax and it's gonna be easier. So you're gonna go back and then just like really make sure you pinch these openings together, so you want to keep as much juice inside these samsa as possible, okay? And I can see that they're actually sticking the seam side of the samsa. That's where it's sticking onto the tandoori oven. So that's also interesting because I think that kind of seals it. So they're all in the oven. Okay, so now they're pouring a significant amount of water into the tandoori oven and onto the bun as well. It's not just in the oven, but like they're making sure that every bun, every samsa is actually drenched. I think that's gonna create a little bit of difficulty. I feel like this oven is closer to like, you know, we're like at like a professional baking oven where there is steam, and that's really hard to create. That's an environment that like really moist baking environment is really hard to replicate with a normal home oven. So again, I'm gonna have to improvise on that. The oven has done preheating. And I have a little plate of water here, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? So the baking sheet's preheated inside the oven. It's going to be really hot. I'm going to do the flat one first. It's less tricky. So how you're going to stick these onto the baking sheet is actually, you're going to have the seam side down, right? And then you're going to dip it in water. And then you're gonna like, you know, press it down into the pan, okay? Just like a tandoori oven, like remember how steamy the oven was? They like totally steamed it up. You need that moisture so these things will stick. And also you want the seam side to be down because you're kind of like using the water and the heat to like close up the seams, right? Okay, so this is the last one, horizontal, okay? And then I'm gonna do egg wash, okay? They didn't do egg wash because their oven is so steamy, they get that shiny surface naturally. I think it's completely not worth it to overcome that technicality, you know, steaming up your oven, like put hot water bath on the bottom. I don't care. I'm just gonna go with good old egg wash, okay? So there. So that's the horizontal one, and I'm gonna put that in the oven first. So hot. Oh my god. And then the same thing here. It's obviously much more important that this thing, the vertical one, sticks really well, because it's vertical and it's gonna fall if it's not sticking well. In fact, I have no idea if these are gonna fall, okay? So this is the first time I'm doing this, so we'll see.
Press it in.
No, don't fall on me. Okay. So egg wash as well. I'm having anxiety right now. I feel like this is gonna. I'm really gonna regret this.
Take a deep breath.
I know I'm gonna regret this. Okay, you come here so you can see it. No, here. Okay. I feel like it's gonna fall, B.
Take a deep breath. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Shove it in. Shove it in. Just do it.
Oh my god, my gutter. My gutter. I have to keep the gutter open. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Not falling yet. Woo, thank God. Okay. Close the oven. Oh my god. That is so hard. I have an emotional breakdown. 25 minutes until golden brown. I don't know what's gonna, I feel like halfway if that thing falls over or whatever, you know, so be it. But we will have at least 4 of them that's laying flat, so we'll see. Yesterday's vertical baking failed. It wasn't really like a huge disaster or anything, but both of the Samsa fell off of the baking sheet midway during baking. They were still good. I finished baking them on the baking sheet, but I was really annoyed, so I decided to give it another go today. And I feel like by tweaking some details, it might work better. I'm not sure. If it still doesn't, then maybe it just doesn't work. So I have this, same. I have a baking sheet, but instead of yesterday, it was a flat baking sheet surface. Today, it's a little perforated, so maybe with this texture, the bun will grab on better. And then also, instead of just water, using water for the Samsa to stick to the baking sheets, I'm gonna use sugar water, because I feel like I have this memory of when I was little, some vendor who was selling something similar baked in a tandoori oven. They use honey water, and I wonder if the sugar is gonna help it stick. So anyways, today that's what we're gonna try. And instead of putting it so vertical, I'm going to maybe have it slanted this way. So maybe that'll be safer. So I'm gonna try baking 3 of them today at the vertical like this and see how it works. So anyway, so now I'm gonna preheat my oven. Trial number 2. Let's go. Dip this in that sugar water. Make sure it has a good dip. Press that on, press that on. Okay, press that in. And then I'm actually going to brush this sugar water on the top as well, because I want more browning. Yesterday's batch was great, but I just want a little bit more browning on the top. And after that, egg wash. I'm going to slide this into the oven in a diagonal way. I'm gonna have my safety. I'm already panicking. I'm gonna have my safety pan here to catch them if they fall, okay? Fingers crossed, 25 minutes. Let's see what happens. Holy shit. 10 minutes in, it's still sticking. So, I don't know. Let's see if it can make it for 20 more minutes. Oh my God, so that totally did work. Nothing fell off. Somehow it took a little bit longer when it's baked vertical, but it works.
Okay, and then they're scraping off of the wall. Did you see that? That one tore a little bit when he was trying to scrape it off of the wall. We're gonna have to be really careful with that.
Been sitting here for about a couple minutes. I'm gonna get this like butter knife, get a really thin knife, and then don't just like yank it out, okay? Like do what they do in the video, scrape it little by little to like loosen it up. Be patient. There. It should have a very, very nice crust. And based on my past experience, I'm actually going to poke a little hole for the steam inside to escape. This actually, I find that this helps the crust stay crispy for longer, okay? Especially if you're not eating these like right away. Those are baked vertical. Let's see what happens when they're baked laying flat. Same thing, I'm gonna get a bit of sugar water and then egg wash. When I bake it flat, I'm baking it in the upper level. When I was baking it vertical, it took like 30 minutes, but this one, 20 minutes, because I've tested many times before. Okay, so let's see what happens.
Super cute. I just love that little pointy hat shape. Super crispy, obviously. But you see that even though it looks like a puff pastry, and you know, like even when they're making it, you're like, why can't I just use a puff pastry? But once he breaks that open, you see how different that is from a puff pastry. Now I'm laying it flat side by side. These two baked vertically or slanted, and these three are baked laying flat. And you can see a significant difference in the appearance, right? Like this is more, you know, like a real Uzbekistan samsa. It has that super crispy pointy tips, and it has like droopy elongated shape because of gravity. Whereas if you bake it flat, it kind of is just this like raindrop emoji shape, kind of, you know. But you know what, like if you don't have this like textured baking sheet and you can only bake it flat, it's fine too, you know. It's not going to affect the taste significantly. As you can see, that the crust is still super crispy. Here it is, guys. I don't know if you can hear this. Super, super crispy. Super crispy and layered with those like buttery flakes, which is so interesting to me because this is actually the first time I make a laminated dough with this method, and it's still so successful. And that's the interesting part about exploring different ways of making or achieving the same results. Okay, here we go. Let me try this. Okay, I'm gonna actually bite into this like super crispy tips here. It's like eating puff pastry. Oh, my meat fell off. Okay.
add a bit of hot sauce. Mmm. Wow. That meat filling, because of the onion, because of the amount of onion in the filling, so juicy, so tender, and also that baking soda is gonna make wonder. Even though like we have those like big chunky meat, it's not like you're gonna catch like a really chewy part. It's all like kind of soft and juicy and like, you know, kind of like all combines into one together because of that baking soda. Mmm. So good. I hope you like this recipe. Let me know in the comments and I'll see you next time. Bye.